I mentioned to you in the first tape, and some of you may not have watched it, but I want you to know I'm a therapist, and I work with women whose husbands have betrayed them. And so I want to talk just kind of some of the topics I'm going to be covering are things where I see us getting stuck as women. And since I've walked through this myself, I will use a lot of personal illustrations from my own story as just so you'll know what I'm talking about when I mention it. And I first kind of want to talk about our reaction to the news. And I've heard every kind of different reaction there is. But for my own self, I notice, and I notice with a lot of the women, we go into some kind of a state of shock. We just kind of don't know what to do with what we've just gotten a hold of. And it's probably some form of denial. If you listen to my story, I mentioned about bending down by Earl and saying, we'll get through this. And by a day later, I'm ready to divorce him. And so some of it's just, you can't get your hands around everything that you've just heard. It's pretty overwhelming to you. So I guess some of it's just being gentle with yourself and just saying, hey, okay. And he'll say to you, well, you said, and you just say, I know, but that's where I was at that moment. I thought we could get through it, but now I'm ready for a divorce. And so you kind of have to just say, that's okay to yourself, first of all. And if they don't get it, well, that's their problem. The other thing, as I mentioned on the first tape about the fact is that I had only, when I read the Earl's letter of disclosure and he mentioned prostitutes, I only read it as one. And then when I realized there'd been more than one, it just came like a huge wave over me. And I had to just go back to the bedroom, curl up in the ball, and I know I went to sleep. I was just, couldn't handle that much information. So you just kind of got to do what you need to take care of yourself in that. And you'll have many different ways in which you'll realize there's been a form of denial. But what I'd say to you is it's got to be dealt with, yours or his stuff. If he, in a sense, you got to say to him, you've got to deal with your stuff because that will keep you in an unhealthy relationship if you don't deal with it. So that'd be kind of one of the first key things I want to tell you about. Then the other thing is the reaction to the news. The differences I've heard is some women become really hyper and we check on, you're going to want to check on, is he here, is he there? You drive by the office, you can't stop driving by the office, and all those kinds of things. And that's pretty normal to have either that or you swing clear over and you're just depressed and you go to bed and you can't even function. So don't be shocked. You're going to end up somewhere between here and there on that. And what I say is that's just your reaction to the news. And so sometimes be gentle with yourself and give yourself a little time. If you stay there and you can't get out of either one of these, then you're going to have to get somebody who comes alongside and helps you because that's detrimental to you. And this is his stuff. And if you don't hear anything else in any other segment that you listen to, this is the one thing I want you to hear. This is not your fault. You did not do it. We all have marriage issues. So what happens is it gets all confused and we start owning, well, if I had just done this different, he wouldn't have gone out and found another woman. It is not your fault. And I know you're going to listen to this and you're going to say, well, she can say that. But the trouble is you've got to come to where you believe it. What I need you to hear is he has a hole in his soul. And he has chosen this to try to fill that hole. It really has nothing to do with you. Now, I say that, it affects you. So please don't misunderstand. You get the flack of it or the fallout, but it is his issue. It is his hole in the soul. And he's chosen that. He might have chosen alcohol. He might have chosen drugs. He might have chosen to become a workaholic. But he's trying to fix something within him. You're going to run into people who would say, oh, you should have had sex with him more. It is not about sex. And so, again, if you can hear any one thing, get a hold of that. This is not my fault. He'll tell you if you had just been. He'll blame it on you because that's the only way he knows to justify it for himself. It is not accurate justification. And I guess we'll just have to leave it there. But if you need to, give me a call, because somehow I want you to hear that. This is not your fault.